Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining another episode of The Collective here on WSME Enlightenment Radio, the original SM crew. Positivity is everything. And with that said, I have a fantastic guest who's going to give us a little knowledge this evening in regard to the assassination of Malcolm X. Now, you may have heard of the movie on Netflix, Who Killed Malcolm X? So I have the pleasure of having on The Collective this evening Abdur-Rahman Muhammad, who is the centerpiece of that documentary. And if you didn't know, I did have him on WNHH a few months back in the before time, I like to call it, before everything else broke loose. So, Abdur-Rahman, thank you so much for agreeing to come back a second time.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure, and I'm very thankful to be here.
I am thankful to have you on the show. So let's talk a little bit about life after the Emmy nomination, because you all were in the news and documentary category and you lost out to 16 shots. But still, just to be nominated is really fantastic. It says a lot. And it also says that all your hard work had been recognized.
Yeah, we did not win, but, that was a very important documentary, of course, related to the Laquan McDonald shooting.
Yes.
It was it was neck and neck, and both of our documentaries were, timely. But we were nominated. There were only 5 documentaries nominated out of 2,000 documentaries.
Wow.
So from 2,000, only 5 were nominated. And, we were right up there at the top. And but we lost out. But, hey, I'll take an Emmy nominated. I'll take that all day.
Yeah. And listen, you lost out to something that is equally important as Who Killed Malcolm X. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you lost to somebody who was duck hunting. you know.
Well, my philosophy has always been that, if I win, that would be great. It'd be a nice feather in the cap. However, my reward comes from the people when I walk on the streets and they recognize the work and they're so appreciative that we solved one of the greatest mysteries in the history, of the African American struggle. American history. We've changed the history book.
You have,
and that's a reward in and of itself, and it satisfies me. I'm quite happy with what we were able to accomplish.
Tell me about the first time you realized your life had changed a little bit.
Well, when I started seeing people creeping around my house, made me kind of nervous. I was ducking, are they recording me, because, in the documentary it shows where I live and everything. So my neighbors, were watching and said, hey, wait, that's the guy that lives down the street, And, but no, not a day goes by. I mean, literally not a single day goes by when someone doesn't walk up to me. And it's really funny because, I have been, completely anonymous, for all of these decades. And then, literally overnight, I became, a known personality. And it's kind of weird to have people walk up to me and go, the guy in the documentary, are you him? So it's humbling. It's humbling, and I'm very appreciative.
Let's back up a little bit.
Can I tell a funny story?
Yes.
With the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I live here in Washington D.C. And there was something of a memorial at the Supreme Court, the weekend of her passing. So I went up there just as a gadfly, what I normally do as a historian. I normally just sit in the cut and I listen and all of these white people were walking up to me, oh, you that was fantastic. That was so incredible. I mean, random white people. I said, man, I must have made it by now.
When you've made it, when you can go into the busboys and poets.
Right, busboys and poets, yep.
Or, I don't know how much you eat Ben's chili bowl, whether that's allowed in your diet or not.
No, I don't fool Ben. Good guy, but I can't eat that.
Yeah, but if any of those type of places in DC offer you a free meal, then I think you've made it.
Well, I can't buy, I can't buy a cup of coffee in this town. Anytime I go, in one of these coffee shops or what have you, man. No, I got that, brother. I got that. For what you did for us? Oh, brother, no, you can't spend any money in here.
That's nice.
Yeah. So.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So let's back up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
How long had you been doing this research? And what motivated you? What made you decide that this was something you wanted to dedicate your time and a very good portion of your life to?
Well, at first I didn't know that I would do that. I was in college in the early 80s.
You're a Howard grad.
Howard University, right. I was at Howard when I first got exposed to the story. Okay, Howard University has its own television station.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to air a show called Tony Brown's Journal.
Yes.
And Tony Brown did an interview with Talmadge Hayer, who was the only confessed assassin of Malcolm X. And he, around this time, a couple of years earlier, had filed a couple of affidavits where he named his co-conspirators. And, being a young kid, and I just thought, okay, well, he's named them, obviously, right? Law enforcement is going to go and get them, okay? And we're going to get the right people. And of course, we know that didn't happen. And around the middle 80s, around 1986 or so, I had embraced the religion of Islam. And now, I had an education and I had a skill set. And I became exposed to people who had knowledge of this thing, And, there were other people who had done work in the field, but it got stalled for some reason. It got stalled. And I just did my thing. The FBI building is right here in Washington, D.C. So the building, so, documents were available to me, and I just drilled down, and what happened was I came to the realization that if I didn't do it, no one was going to do it. It literally was a dead letter issue. It was frozen in the history books, but the history was wrong. It was a wrong account of what happened.
And I think too, when you start to put it that way, I wonder how many people in the African American community just kind of threw up their hands and said it's unsolvable. We just hit dead ends and got frustrated and said, you know what? It's not going to happen. It's not going to be solved.
Well, the truth of the matter is, most African Americans didn't really care about it like that. See, what?
You think so?
Well, yes, I know so. Because, in Malcolm X's own lifetime, he wasn't a very popular man.
No, he wasn't.
Okay. Newsweek magazine in July 1963, they did a survey of African Americans. And they found that 85% of Black people supported Dr. King and the civil rights establishment, and only 15% of African Americans supported Elijah Muhammad's program. The survey didn't even mention Malcolm. Even in New York, Malcolm was very unpopular. He was below Adam Clayton Powell and everything. I mean, he was at the bottom. And so that, coupled with the fact that Black middle class, and this is something that I'm going to be banging on. The black middle class, they weren't receptive of Malcolm. The Howard University community, where I'm an alma mater, in 1961, Black History Week, or Negro History Week at that time, the NAACP student chapter had invited Malcolm to Howard University, and the Board of Trustees said no. Okay, it was only the intervention of the great sociologist, Dr. E. Franklin Frazier, who wrote Black Bourgeoisie, who prevailed upon the university to allow Malcolm to speak, and he was able to come that October. Thurgood Marshall called Malcolm X a thug. Okay, the black journalist Carl Rowan, assailed Malcolm. He wasn't a beloved figure. Okay, and also there was, a great amount of fear and trepidation around his personality. Yeah, it wasn't in anyone's interest to really get at the bottom of it. I mean, it was treated by law enforcement and the justice system as a black on black crime, and it was no way treated like the assassination of Dr. King. And so all of these factors you see in the documentary. Dr. David Garrow said that, it is well known amongst black people that digging into this issue of who killed Malcolm X is a very dangerous issue. Okay, you're dealing with some very dangerous people, and it was in no one's interest to get to the bottom of it.
Now, when you say that, that makes me think of a particular episode in the documentary where you actually go to Newark. And it seems that everybody who is somebody in the community knows the person, but they also advise you, especially one of your Muslim brothers says, leave it alone, man. Leave it alone. Now, was that power, or was that fear, or was that both?
It's both. Really, it was the groupthink, it was the closed ranks. Unfortunately, in our community, I'm noticing a tendency that we like to laud and lionize, the worst elements in our community, and the best of us, we attack and assault and tear down. I stood at the gravesite. You saw it in the film.
Yes, in the documentary.
The shotgun assassin of Malcolm X. And this is what I heard about the deceased in that hole. Man, this brother was a soldier, brother. He was a soldier. We're never going to get another one like him. This is how they're talking about this murderer. Okay? I don't think, and I know that these people were not aware or self-conscious enough to realize how this would sound to the broader community.
Yes.
That this man was given a funeral more illustrious than was given to Malcolm. A crystal horse-drawn hearse to the gravesite. Okay, the mosque was packed, and everybody in there knew who that man was. Okay, and they loved him. They treated him like a hero. So, why did people act like that? Well, because this man Bradley moved in a criminal world, an underworld, and those guys all have secrets on one another. Yeah.
So
once you cover my back, I cover your back. They all have dirt on one another, And not only that, there was more than just Bradley and the other four that were involved. I mean, this.
Well, it seemed like it was a perfect storm, right? Because Malcolm X was on the outs with the nation, so he didn't have the protection of Elijah Muhammad. The New York City Police Department was basically, as the middle class, the black middle class called him, thought of Malcolm X as a, quote, thug, rabble rouser, troublemaker. And between the two of them, even though they had assigned one particular person who came up in the organization to be his bodyguard, the young man Gene Roberts, they kept tabs on Malcolm that way. But it just seems that, and tell me if I'm wrong, in your research, that things kind of point to a collusion between the police department of New York City, specifically Manhattan Police, and the nation. The FBI kind of knew what was going on, but they felt as if he was not that important for them to be fully involved. Am I correct?
You talking about the FBI?
Yes. They kept tabs on him, but I guess because they are the FBI, it seems, who knows how deep they were in the nation, but it just seems that from the documentary, the onus is on New York police. And for some reason, they just decided they were not going to do any kind of protection, even when his house got bombed. And so it almost seems that the New York police said, we're going to turn a blind eye because they didn't supply. They were outside of the ballroom that day. And besides Mr. Roberts, there was very little protection for Malcolm inside the Audubon Ballroom. So is there any lead to anybody else besides this mosque in Newark?
Well, here's what you have to understand. The FBI were very concerned about Malcolm X, in addition to the New York City Police Department. Mm-hmm. You heard Anthony Boozer, who ran the BOSS division.
Yes,
and that is the secret police, the ultra secret wing of the New York City Police Department, the Bureau of Special Services and Investigation. He said that, they viewed Malcolm as very dangerous. And so did the FBI. The truth of the matter is the FBI started following Malcolm as early as 1950, 2 years before he was released from prison.
Why is that?
That's when the file on Malcolm X was opened. Malcolm, he had just got transferred back to the Charlestown,
Massachusetts
facility, right? And he had come from the Norfolk prison colony where he educated himself. Okay, that facility was more like a college campus. There were no bars. This library. Professors would come in from Harvard and Boston University. And that's where he was on the debate team. And that's where he educated himself. But once he empowered himself with these debate skills and these oratorical skills, okay, and this incredible education that he acquired, then he started, feeling himself a little bit. He became an advocate. He got a little community together in the prison. He started converting people into prison. And it became like what we call in Islam a jama'ah, or a congregation in the prison.
Okay.
And then he started making demands on the prison. He said, we want ourselves to face Mecca. We don't want to eat pork. We don't want these vaccinations. He started militating inside prison. So he was becoming a problem. So they said, okay, well, this prison is so bad for you, Malcolm. Here's what we'll do. Because it had actually gotten outside into the media. They said, Negro Muslim prisoners they were clowning them, but it had gotten into the public, and it embarrassed like the authorities in the Norfolk prison colony. So they sent him back to the first prison that he was at, which was a hellhole. It was built in 1805. It was built in the Napoleon era.
Yeah.
It was so bad that it was torn down only 3 years after Malcolm X was released. It was horrible.
Wow.
It was horrible. Okay. But when he got sent, back to that hellhole, he wrote a letter to President Harry Truman, and this was right around the time of the Korean War, 1950. And he wrote a letter to Harry Truman, and he said that he would never fight in the Korean War. He said, in fact, I would have fought on the side of the Japanese in the last war. And here's what got the file opened on it. He said, in fact, I have always been a communist. Now, Malcolm wasn't a communist. There's no evidence that says he was a communist.
Yeah, he was a communist. Yeah.
He's throwing his weight around a little bit, And so even in prison, they recognized.
Yeah.
This guy is special. This guy has to be watched. This is not a regular Negro. Okay. When he gets out, keep in mind, he's debating how Harvard professors. Okay. He's a rhetorical master. You know what I mean? Logic, philosophy. This is not a regular. In fact, Elijah Muhammad recognized as soon as he met Malcolm. One of those $60,000 words came out of his mouth. Elijah didn't have that, So, this guy's going to be my asset. This guy can get it. Yeah. This guy can get me on the college campus. This guy can get me to places, you know what I mean, where I could never go with what I had. So, the FBI have been watching Malcolm because they viewed him as a dangerous Negro. And Malcolm was, he was kind of belligerent with it. One prison official said that when he told one of the prison officials there, he said, when I get out of here, I'm going to use this to put a whooping on your people.
And that he did.
He
did do that.
And so that file remained open until the day he passed. Yeah, until the day he was assassinated. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
And let me say one more thing about this FBI since we on it.
Yeah.
We suspect that John Ali, who went on to become the National Secretary of the Nation of Islam in 1960, before he got that position, he was the secretary of Muhammad's Mosque number 7 in Harlem under Malcolm, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, we suspect he was an FBI agent, but he actually lived with Malcolm for 2 years. When Malcolm was transferred from Philadelphia in 1954 to Harlem, to Muhammad's Mosque number 7, John Ali would become the secretary of number 7. And they lived together in the same duplex about 2 blocks from Malcolm's future home. And like once they had their daughter Attila, then he had to move out. So it's quite conceivable. And we suspect that he was actually living with an FBI operative in his own home.
Wow. Because John Ali and Malcolm sort of split as well, because there was a little jealousy between them once Malcolm really became on the rise.
Well, Malcolm was everything that John Ali was not.
Okay.
John Ali was short, Malcolm was tall. John Ali was not very articulate, and Malcolm was charismatic, electrifying. But really, it's really more than that. We think he was actually, an FBI agent. We think that. And so it really kind of transcends any kind of personal animosity. We think the man was a straight up operative, who in conjunction with the Nation of Islam and, the federal government was involved in this assassination. We can't actually, pinpoint it. We suspect or we believe, and I have to couch it like that. This man is still alive. One of the most challenging things in producing a documentary like this is getting it through the army of lawyers.
Yes.
Even with William Bradley, we're talking about a man who was never convicted in a court of law.
Hold that thought. We've got a break. This is The Collective. Abdur-Rahman Muhammad is our guest. He is the historian behind the documentary Who Killed Malcolm X. We'll be back after this. Thank you for joining the collective. Again, my name is Michelle Turner, and I have the good fortune of being its host. And on the collective with me this evening, the historian behind, dare I call it a documentary?
Docuseries.
We'll call it a docuseries. Who Killed Malcolm X? Abdur-Rahman Muhammad. I appreciate you being here so much. And I thank you for allowing me to continue the conversation that we started back in February.
My pleasure.
So we were talking about the FBI, but I want to move into, and John Ali and he being an operative, possibly a top operative in the Nation of Islam. There's 5 people I want to talk about because I think they are essential to the work that you have done and what you found out. Willie Bradley. I'm sorry. Thelmage Hayer, Norman Butler, Gene Roberts. They're all in this story, and they're all there, with the exception of Norman Butler.
No, Norman Butler's in there. You mean Talmadge Hayer?
Talmadge Hayer.
I mean, Talmadge Hayer, we used stock footage.
Okay. But I'm saying they were all there February 21st.
No. Norman 3X Butler was not there.
That's what I was saying. Yes. Yeah. He was the one that was
convicted. There. He was convicted for the assassination, but he was not there.
But he was not there. No. And yet he served time.
That's correct. 20 years for a crime he didn't commit.
That he didn't commit. And there is proof on record that he had a medical condition which didn't allow him to leave the house. And yet he was still arrested. And when I looked at the footage of him coming out with the New York City police, he had a literal limp, which proved he possibly could not leave home.
He had gone to the doctor that morning about his legs. Okay. He had, you see, like I say, in the footage, watch very carefully, he's literally limping out the house.
When they take him
into custody.
Car. Yeah. So we all know why. Basically, New York City police, in my assessment, from what I see in the docuseries, had to close this case, had to bring it to trial. We found 3 black men. We're saying they're there. We're going to close this case, send them to jail. Malcolm X's case is closed.
That's correct.
How did you find the thread that kind of started to pull the fabric apart in that scenario?
Well, can I share this with you? What really helped me understand this case, and you really have to try to understand this, is being a Muslim myself, okay, and understanding the concepts, of forgiveness, the concept of repentance, okay. When I heard Talmadge Hayer, okay, talk about his role in the assassination, and he was, very repentant for what he did. He was only 22 years old. And he was manipulated by these ministers and by the vicious propaganda that the Nation of Islam was promulgating, through the rank and file. But this young man, when he was a kid, okay, when I heard his account of what happened and the sincere repentance for it that he made, and he came clean with it. You see, he had a reason not to come clean as long as Elijah Muhammad was alive and the Nation of Islam still existed. In 1975, when Elijah Muhammad's son, Wallace D. Muhammad, took over the leadership of the Nation of Islam, he essentially dismantled it. He took it apart, okay? And he changed the doctrines and the dogma, and he brought it in line with the traditional, we say, classical Orthodox version of Islam, okay? So there was nothing for Talmadge Hayer to protect anymore. Elijah Muhammad was gone. He didn't have to protect him. The Nation of Islam was gone. He didn't have to protect him. And this is the critical point here. When Wallace came into power, he revealed all of the secrets, of his father's, extramarital life. Okay.
Which then cleared Malcolm in a way.
Well, that's what happened. Talmadge Hayer saw himself, a young man, he saw himself as a prisoner behind enemy lines. He wasn't going to talk because he even denied that he was a Muslim. Okay, he denied all of it. Yeah. The evidence against him at the trial was overwhelming. They brought photographs of him, in the martial arts class. And they proved at trial that he was, a member of the Nation of Islam. But he even denied that on the stand. But when he went to prison, he saw it as he literally saw Malcolm X as an enemy to all that he believed in, right?
Yeah.
He saw the Nation of Islam as the salvation of Black people. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad is a great prophet and messenger of God. When Wallace came into power, okay, he revealed all of the truths that Malcolm was articulating before his death. The truths related to Elijah Muhammad's secret extramarital life. That's the first time that Talmadge Hayer heard the truth in prison, that he had been lied to, that he had been manipulated. These brothers were told that these were Malcolm's children. You see, that was propaganda, that these women having these children, these were really Malcolm's former prostitutes from Boston. That was the story. That's what they were moving on, that these children were really Malcolm's children, and he's now trying to throw his filth on the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the man who raised them from mental and spiritual death. Okay, so that they moved. They say any man who would do something like that, after all that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did for Malcolm, he deserves to die. Okay, and that's what Talmadge Hayer entered prison believing. So when Wallace came to power and said basically what Malcolm said is true, those little children you saw, those are my brothers and sisters. And Talmadge Hayer had a nervous breakdown.
Wow.
In prison. He had a nerve because he had taken the life of one of the greatest Black men that our community had ever produced.
Yeah.
And he was racked with guilt, and he had converted also, to Orthodox Islam. And he believed that he was facing the hellfire. He thought he was going to go to hell for it.
Yeah.
He had spoken to the prison imam, and he wanted to come clean with everything. Elijah Muhammad was dead. The Nation of Islam is gone. There's nothing for me to protect anymore. So in 1977 and 1978, he filed 2 affidavits in which he gave it all up. And, my being a Muslim, I could understand that kind of repentance. That brother was in fear for his soul, what I mean? And he left nothing out.
Yeah. Which is understandable.
Yeah.
Gene Roberts is probably, to me, one of the most interesting people in this series. And I say that because he, even in seeing him later and discussing what happened that day, he still clearly was someone who was shook by all of that. And when the police officers asked him, why did you try to save his life? He said, because that's what we're supposed to do as policemen.
Police, yeah.
Even though he wasn't a policeman, in the respect that he had not been trained, he had not necessarily been sworn as an officer. He was someone who came out of the academy and they said, hey, kid, come here. We got something for you to do. And so he became Malcolm's bodyguard. And he, in a time period, and correct me if I'm wrong, was one of the closest people to Malcolm shortly before his death. And in looking at the footage of him, he still seems as if he was not dealing with that whole scenario very well.
No, he didn't deal with it very well. Gene Roberts was never called to the stand. And, he was used to infiltrate the Black Panthers. Okay. It was in the Black Panther trial that it was revealed that he was, a boss agent or a boss officer. Mm-hmm. But yes, Gene Roberts had a difficult life. I mean, he struggled with alcoholism for many, many years. The brother was, he was racked with, I don't know if he was racked with guilt. I mean, Gene Roberts was just a young man, 24 years old. I was
getting ready to say, he also was a young man.
He was a young man, and he just had a new baby, and, his job was to keep America safe. That's how he saw it. He didn't see himself as being a snitch or a rat or, a traitor to the race or anything like that. He had a job to do. And the truth be told, he actually came to like Malcolm. That's why he tried to save his life. There's a conspiracy theory out there that I like to debunk, okay, that Gene Roberts was trying to kill Malcolm. Well, you don't give a man mouth-to-mouth resuscitation when he's shot because you're going to kill him. What is he doing giving him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation? No, Gene Roberts just instinctively wanted to try to save Malcolm's life because, he was with him all the time, and you couldn't be with Malcolm that amount of time and not like the guy.
Yeah.
He was a very likable, congenial guy.
Yeah. And that seems to be the consensus. He might get in your case, but overall, he was a very intelligent man. He had a sense of humor. And he always was trying to teach. He always, it seemed, was trying to pass on what he learned to other young Black men so that they could understand how important family and community were and what we needed to do as African Americans to rebuild our community and get out of a slave owner, slave mind or slave mentality.
And also, one thing about Malcolm as well is that he really wasn't concerned about being liked. I mean, keep in mind, right, at a time when we just saw the March on Washington, right? Dr. King is catapulted, right, into the leadership. He's the Negro leader. Dr. King and the other big six Negro leaders, they were petitioning Lyndon Johnson, right? They were Lyndon Johnson, who was a Southern racist Dixiecrat, okay, who used the N-word, all the time, all right? But the civil rights leaders needed Johnson to get this bill passed, okay? I told you most Black Americans were with the civil rights leaders, okay? Right. And here's Malcolm in the Ballad of the Bullet blasting Johnson, blasting the bill, blasting the March on Washington. He's calling it a fraud. It's a farce. The white liberals took it over, made it weak, okay? That didn't make him popular. That didn't make him loved by Black people. That Howard University crowd and the big six Negro leaders and their following and those ministers, okay?
And he knew it.
They wanted that bill passed. Malcolm is going to ruin it. He's going to ruin our chance, Mm-hmm. The same way they went after Ice Cube, Ice Cube tried to do something a little different, okay? And the Black community tried to savage him, tried to destroy him, and I stood up for Ice Cube because what Ice Cube did, right, is something that very much that Malcolm would have did. Malcolm wanted solutions.
Yeah.
Okay? He he didn't care about being liked.
Yeah.
All right.
It's about solutions.
About solutions. He was a solutions guy, and he wailed on those white liberals, man. Okay, you think those civil rights leaders who needed that white philanthropic money?
Yeah,
okay, it was white philanthropic money that the Carlyle Group that was behind the March on Washington, and here's Malcolm, blasting them. All right, he wasn't loved. Everybody acts like they love him now. Okay, but if you love him now, then you have to give some leeway to brothers like Cube and other brothers who want to go a different way.
Willie Bradley is the linchpin in all of this. Now, he was known to carry a shotgun. Long criminal history. And even when Gil Noble goes back to the Audubon Ballroom on a significant anniversary on his show Like It Is, they find the actual lectern in the basement of the Audubon Ballroom, and it's got huge holes in it that everybody on scene says, that's not a small gun. That's got to be a shotgun blast. And yet, nobody ever questioned Willie Bradley. And all of that time, the mayor of Newark, one of the state reps, and Cory Booker. Everybody knows who this guy is.
Everybody.
Cory Booker says, oh, I didn't know he was connected with the death of Malcolm X. Oh, he's in one of my videos. Yeah, because he's a community activist. And then the state rep tells you, well, we don't have all the evidence. And he's done a lot for the community in Newark.
Yep.
And Raz Baraka says, well, all of this is alleged. But everybody knows him.
Everybody knows it.
And we don't necessarily think that you can believe everything you hear. Because after all, there's always rumors about black men and shootings and killings. But in the documentary, you have a clip of him leaving the scene with a huge black coat on.
And a newspaper in his pocket. And that's what all of the witnesses recounted, that they were sitting up front before the people came in. These assassins had got there early and they sat very quietly in the front and they were just reading. And so when you see William Bradley on the outside walking away, you see he has that newspaper in his pocket. And he's feigning like it's like a misdirection. That's what magicians do. They use misdirection. So he's acting like he's getting in the fray. So the police converge on Talmadge Hayer trying to save his life. And then he just very calmly walks away. He used to brag about that later in life, that he was so clever that he could think of that maneuver. He used to brag about that. And he used for many, many years on the street. That was his street reputation. He was the murderer of Malcolm. You better not mess with him. You better not mess with that man. And he would say, nigga, you mess with me. You saw what happened to Malcolm, didn't you? So that's how we know. It wasn't anything that was hidden. He wore it as a badge.
Hidden in plain sight.
Huh?
Hidden in plain sight.
Hidden in plain sight. And in fact, after Who Killed Malcolm X, many people now have come forward. I've talked to brothers who have been incarcerated with him, because he served many years himself in prison.
Yeah.
And they said that, he admitted it when he was in prison. He admitted it to his cellies and stuff like that. But it's well known. Sheila Oliver, who's a very, very nice lady. Let me just say this about Sheila Oliver. I was very impressed with her. She loves Black people. She loves her community. You know what I'm saying?
That's the
But
state rep from Newark.
State rep from Newark. She was actually mentored by Bradley's wife.
Okay.
Bradley reinvented himself by marrying Carolyn Kelly, who many years earlier led the campaign to get Reuben Hurricane Carter
out of jail.
Right, the hurricane out of jail. Right. So she's a community activist. She has a lot of credibility in the community and a lot of love in the community. So when Bradley married her, the goodwill, that she had, it was kind of transferred to him. Yeah. And folks just kind of say, okay, the gym is helping kids get their life together. They're tutoring the kids. They're mentoring the kids. What good would it do now to take this man down? Sheila Oliver had 2 state vehicles with government seals on the fender in the front of the funeral procession for William X. Bradley, al-Mustafa Shabazz, the shotgun assassin of Malcolm X.
Real quick, and because I want to talk a little bit about Norman Butler, and I also want to talk about your course. If you had the opportunity, what would you have asked William Bradley?
Well, let me answer this question first. A lot of people ask, well, why didn't you approach him earlier? Okay, that's not something I was going to do by myself. All right.
Okay, so, I get it. I get it.
I'm brave, but I'm not that brave. Okay, and it took a long time for me to get anyone interested in the story because the man had not been convicted.
Right.
For any crime.
Right.
So there were, many news outlets that had stories in the can, that wouldn't publish it because their lawyers wouldn't let them. Now to answer your question, what would I say to him if I got the chance? Because that was the next thing we were going to do. I mean, we were geared up, ready to go.
Right.
And I always knew there was a race against time. We're all getting older. When I began this process, this study, I had a nice black beard, and I was a young, handsome gentleman, and now I'm an older gentleman, I'm an older handsome.
You're still handsome. I'll give you that. You're still handsome. It's okay.
Right. And so, but I just would have asked him, I said, brother, man, how do you live with yourself, man? Okay, you're a Muslim. Did you ever think about Malcolm's children? Did you ever think about the ramifications of what you did? You're a Muslim, you went on Hajj, you made the pilgrimage to Mecca, how could you let these people, these 2 brothers, rot in prison for a crime that you committed? How do you sleep with yourself? I wanted to ask him these types of questions. Usually what he would do is, he would just say, that's like, he was real gruff.
Yeah.
Talk to my lawyer, talk to my wife. And then his wife would come out and throw interference for him, whether she knew or not. I'm not going to get in. I'm not trying to get straight here, but she would come out and say, it's all a lie. My husband had nothing to do with it, so on and so forth, So that's probably what would have happened. He probably wouldn't have talked to me anyway,
Norman Butler. There's a movement to get charges dropped, get his record absolved.
Yeah.
Where is that now, and how's it going?
Well, today Norman 3X Butler is known as Muhammad Abdulaziz, and he's 82 years old. And
wow.
He's in great shape, though. I mean, being my brothers. And, he's about 30 years older than I am. When I met him, I said, wow, I'm thinking I'm going to see an old, decrepit old man. No, he's very spry. He's fit, He told me he wants to live to be 140. But
he might make it.
He might make it. He got a new wife, and she's keeping him young, and he's a good, he's just living out his life, and I can't speak to, his bitterness or lack of bitterness, but anybody would be bitter to have 20 years of your life taken away, contact with your family, and having to live with the stigma of an assassin of Malcolm X. How's the case coming along? I'm not part of the legal team. However, I do have a role, obviously. Obviously. But he has very good representation. The Innocence Project, Barry Scheck.
Good.
Yep. And his personal attorney is a guy named David Shaney's. And I believe that we're going to be hearing some good news about that.
Good.
Within, the next couple of months. I'm hearing good things.
Good.
I think some good things are happening.
Good.
I hope so. I hope it happens, and it should happen.
It should happen. The course. Talk the next few minutes. You got 5 minutes. Talk about the class.
Well, the last time, I did your show, you asked me what's next.
Yes.
And I said there'll probably be a season 2. Where we'll try to cover the trial of these men and other facets of the case. But I also told you that I was developing a course on the autobiography of Malcolm X. Mm-hmm. Now, that was pre-COVID. All right. So COVID gave me the time to, put the course together, something I had been wanting to do for, many, many years. And I did. And it's fantastic, if I can say so myself. It's nothing like it. We go through the book meticulously, and we peel back the veil, on all of these characters and episodes in his life. We tell you who, Sophia is, for example, his white girlfriend from Boston. Who is this guy, Shorty? Who is he? We go, who is Bimby, the prison intellectual, who turns Malcolm around, turns him to the light of the mind, right? All of these little details and things, revelations. This course for the first time reveals the identity of Malcolm's white grandfather.
Wow.
Which was not known. Malcolm didn't even know who he was. Okay. And I have had already many students, but let me just share with you some of the students I've had. I've had 2 of Malcolm X's nieces take the course. I mean, they paid for it and everything, and they loved it. One of them told me at the conclusion of the course, she said, "I didn't tell you that I was Malcolm's niece." She said, "I wasn't trying to spy on you or anything, but she said, but yes, I am one of Malcolm's nieces, his sister, Yvonne's daughter."
Wow.
She said, I must tell you, your research is incredible. This is Malcolm X's niece. All right.
So if someone wants to take the class, what do they need to do? Where do they go to find information?
Go to Eventbrite.
Okay.
I have two sections. Section AMX, Autobiography of Malcolm X, Section AMX 100. That's the first part of the course. And then I have AMX 200. That's obviously the second part of the course. You have to take 100 before you take 200.
Okay, okay, Professor.
Yeah, okay. So no, you go to Eventbrite. Okay, go to Eventbrite. It's very easy. Just type in the Malcolm X course on Zoom.
Okay.
The Malcolm X course on Zoom, and go ahead and register. And
how long is the course?
Huh?
How long is the course?
The course that's a good question. It's a month long. It meets once a week for 90 minutes. It's 6 hour. It's a 6 hour course.
Okay.
And there's nothing like it. I mean, I've had people from all over the world, scholars from all over the world who've taken this course. PhD scholars and professors from literally all over the world, France, Turkey, the Middle East. of all races, Black, white, Asian, Arab, and it's a huge success. The reviews are online. You can go read them. I mean, the folks that have taken the course have been blown away. There's nothing like it. I'm promoting it because I know there's nothing like it. I've poured 30, 40 years of research on this man's life into this course, and it's full. If you think Who Killed Malcolm X is full of revelations, you'll love this course. I had one brother who came away and he said, brother, I would have, for what you charged for the course, the first class would have been enough for me. The first class was full of revelations. It
was enough for you, right?
Yeah. One piece of information I gave in the last part of the course, there was a white scholar from University of Arizona, and he's an expert on the writings and the speeches of Dr. King. He said there's one piece of information in that last course. He said, Brother Abdur-Rahman, that piece of information right there, to me, for what I do, was worth the whole price of the course.
Wow.
Anybody can afford it. I made it affordable. I could charge a lot more for it. That's not the point. I want as many people to take it. If you love Brother Malcolm and you love that book, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Abdur-Rahman Muhammad, thank you so much. Got to wrap it up, but I've been anticipating this. I've been telling people about it because your work has truly changed the history books in Black America. That is for sure. And on my own, I want to say thank you so much for what you've done and what you've exposed, because it truly is an eye-opening experience. Who Killed Malcolm X is the name of the docu-series on Netflix, Emmy nominated, and the historian that surrounds that particular piece is right here. And he has been a guest on The Collective. And I hope maybe sometime in the aftertime in 2021, I'll have him come back again.
Well,
Abdur-Rahman Muhammad, thank you so much. I appreciate you being on The Collective, and good luck in your future endeavors, which we didn't get to talk about. I know you got more stuff coming up.
Yeah, we do.
Thank you, Doc. This has been The Collective. I'm Michelle Turner. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you.